Welcome to the Catholic Table Talk podcast. This is where everything Catholic is on the table. New episodes Thursdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on most podcast platforms. Here's your host, William Sauber.
Welcome back to part 2. This is part 2 with Scott Malone. I'm your host, William Sauber. First of all, before we get to today's show, I just want to share with you a little bit what Scott wanted to share with you. He felt really bad after the first part about the way, his speech. He was a little not 100%. Same with today's episode. He was under the weather at the time recording today's episode as well. But he felt really bad because of how his speech impairment and his other disabilities. He just felt really bad with his disabilities, so he wanted to make sure. He does say that to start off today's episode, but again, he wanted to bring that forward as well, to get that out there. So again, today's episode will start with his disabilities. We'll jump right back in where he left off, and he's pretty much how he became Catholic. The final testimonial part right here is pretty cool. He talks about his encounter with the Blessed Virgin Mary. He talks with his when he sees the Lord in heaven, the 5 minutes that he died in his accident back in when he was 16, and that stuff, and what the Lord said to him up on the east side of heaven, which is really something that we all can take for every day. So, without further ado, here is part 2 with myself and the one and only, the incredible Scott Malone. So, again, Scott, the floor is yours, and I want to say it's not something that I would do. I mean, again, like I told you, I have a speech impairment. I don't like to talk to others or share others about it, or I guess, share others my weaknesses. But I think it's a great thing that you are. So, go ahead, man. Your floor is yours.
Okay, well, I just want to basically state that, I do have speech issues, and this is due to the vitamin E deficiency that later developed. My testimony is from ataxia due to vitamin E deficiency. It's called dysarthria. Anyways, I just don't want people to think I'm stupid. So, and I don't want to think that I'm drunk as well. Anyways, getting back to my testimony, I graduated from North Central in 2007 in the fall semester. Anyways, in this last semester, I was dealing with the issue of ecclesiology in the church. That was one of my last systematic theology classes was on ecclesiology, and many papers I wrote really reflected my contemplation on the Catholic Church. And many of them would almost be like a rebuttal to the Protestant church and how their ecclesiology is set up. I don't know if people are aware what ecclesiology means. It means basically church structure and how the church is ran. During this time, I also was diving into church fathers as well and what they taught, and I found that much of their teaching reflected Catholic understanding of ecclesiology. So I was leaning toward the Catholic Church at this time, but Protestant animosity is quite strong. I was really raised I don't think I was raised my parents really, but it was just the whole Protestant mindset that the Catholic Church has gone astray in teaching heresy and all this stuff. Anyway, so I graduated in 2007. But during this time, over my time period at North Central University, I was involved with a ministry that was reaching out to the homeless and drug addicted and many of the social issues that are found in today's society in urban America, or rural urban America. Yeah. The large city of Minneapolis kind of has a lot of diverse cultures. So I was dealing with multiple issues, and I'm this small town farm town kid trying to understand the big city. And evidently, the ministry I was working with, as I said, reached out to the drug addicted, many of the men that I worked with. After my graduation, I began full-time with this ministry as an assistant pastor, and during this time there's a bunch of issues that took place. Anyways, I don't know if people recall the 2008 financial crisis that was taking place in America, and I was only involved with this ministry. I was working with the men, and this was starting to flourish quite. It was something else, and I learned quite a bit. And I don't want to say that my time there was in vain, because God was moving and God was doing things. But I was struggling with this whole concept of ecclesiology, and anyways, the 2008 financial crisis caused the CEOs, or the head pastors, to lay me off in January of 2009 because their financial capabilities to hold me there were depleted. So they let me go, and I got involved with the public school systems there in Minneapolis because I still felt called to inner city ministry. And because I saw there was so much struggle and so much hurt, and I felt like I could help people, to pull out of the poverty or pull out of issues that they're dealing with. Anyways, so I started in the public schools. I started out there working with a group, our program that was dealt with Socratic teaching, and how, I don't know if people understand what Socratic teaching, but it is basically asking questions to how to properly ask questions and how to properly discern how to properly answer them, I guess you'd say. It basically comes off of the Socratic method. Anyways, I was there for the last semester of their school, our last 2 quarters, I guess you'd say. In the public schools, I taught the summer school there using this method as well. But I still felt called to work with the inner city after this, and I got involved with another program that was reaching out, or working with kids that were they were kids that were struggling in the public school system with their grades. And I was a volunteer tutor mentor with this program for 2 years.
Wow.
And the kids that I work with, I have many kids that were the same kids that I worked with at the ministry I was with prior to my involvement in the public schools. So there is a tie there between homes that struggle with many different things and their education. Anyways, and this kind of opened me up to the whole understanding that multiple kids, they struggle in school because they struggle with math concepts. Many don't graduate because they feel stupid, because they can't understand the math. And this shouldn't be an impediment to a person graduating. But it is. So I felt kind of called to working with kids in the public school system. I was planning to graduate, or upon my retirement from this program, I would plan to pursue a degree in school counseling, get a master's degree in school counseling, and work with kids in the inner city. But in 2011, I started experiencing neurological symptoms where my speech started to become impaired, my hands started trembling, had difficulty actually walking. My last semester that I was working with the kids in the public schools, I had to use a cane to get around. I mean, it was
scary. Yeah.
And the thing is, though, I was being cared for. I don't want to bring in too many issues here, but I was not being cared for properly with my primary care providers. And they were not taking proper blood work for 15 years, evidently, I came to find out. And so I had to move back home in 2011 to figure out what was going on. And that was September 11th of 2011. That was my own personal 9/11, I do consider. Because everything I was trying to gain was basically thrown out the window. My education, I was having a hard time speaking at this time. I was having a hard time getting around. I couldn't do normal daily activities anymore. And I had to move back home and figure out what was going on. And as I was saying that I was not getting proper blood work drawn at this time to figure out what all my blood levels were doing on different critical vitamins and minerals. And I came to find out in 2011, late December of 2011, that it was actually January, February of 2012, that they noticed that my vitamin E levels were almost untraceable.
Yeah.
And what this vitamin E deficiency causes is oxidative damage to your cerebellum. And that was what was causing the neurological issues that I still am dealing with today, but not as much as I was in 2012, 2011. So basically, in 2012, I started doctoring at the Mayo Clinic. At the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, figure out, what will be the best way of managing my physical issues. And I was accepted into the Mayo Clinic under their care. And then they put me on parental nutrition, which is IV nutrition. It is fed through a port in my chest. And it's kept in that fridge behind me. But this IV nutrition that I'm on it 12 hours a day, I was on it for 7 days a week. So that's... And also at the time in 2012, I was I had to go into recovery mode at this time. And so I quit my involvement in church activities and basically being all in public, because I wasn't stuck at home, trying to recover from this and this.
Sure.
And anyways, in 2014, the end of 2013, I sent in my request to the local ALC where I actually graduated, or got my credits, graduated from high school from, to become involved with their program to tutor kids in math and algebra and other studies, because this is one thing I failed to mention in my first segment, that in my accident I had a hematoma on my brain that, because of the fracture to my skull, anyways, so they had to drain it, and that was traumatic brain injury. They had to test me for my mental capacities. Anyways, they done tests to see if how well my math skills were and my reading and comprehension skills were. And my math scores came back as, and I was 16 at this time, it came back as secondary education type math capabilities, abstract understanding. So I had skills in math, and I knew I could help out kids because I was working in public schools prior to my moving back home. So I had skills working with kids in the public schools. So I figured, well, I might as well work in a public school type setting and help kids out. And in 2014, they allowed me to start tutoring in January 2014. And then on my way home, I started feeling that if I'm good enough to start tutoring kids once again, I'm able to start being involved in church. So I made the decision on following Sunday to attend church. And during these 2 years that I was out at church, I was doing a lot of research online and renting books from local library on the whole concept of suffering. Because my life, suffering is just been there. I mean, I've been suffering for 30 years, and so suffering is kind of an important issue for me.
Right.
I want to understand the whole issue of suffering, so I was reading C.S. Lewis' Problem of Pain, came across, and I also was knowledgeable of Greg Boyd and his open theistic teachings on suffering, and we can go on to different details. Anyways, so I became quite knowledgeable in different understanding of suffering, but then I came across the teaching on the catholictt's teaching on redemptive suffering. And I read Pope John Paul II's apostolic letter on redemptive suffering, and it seemed like it was pretty logical, and it just kind of floored me. So anyways, I was dealing with this, for 2 years I was meditating on this, and I shouldn't say 2 years, but I came across it. Anyways, that Sunday after I started tutoring, I decided to attend a mass at the local parish and talk to a priest after about this whole concept of redemptive suffering. So I was on my way to the parish, and a block away I had the Protestant animosity hit again once again. And I saw a United Methodist Church a block away and decided to veer off to attend the service there. And anyways, so I was running from the Catholic Church at this time. Anyways, I attended the service there, and I spoke with the assistant pastor after. And he informed me that their head pastor was an ordained Assembly of God preacher, and he was also ordained in the Methodist Church at this time. But it interested me that why was this Assembly of God preacher in the United Methodist Church? And anyway, so that sparked curiosity on that subject, and I attended the service with, now I guess you know him as Father J.C. But
Right.
anyways, the following week following service I attended was with Father J.C., and I was listening to a sermon, and his sermons were quite well. And it floored me on how well they were. He was pretty eloquent in how he spoke, and pretty knowledgeable guy, I guess. So, anyways, I spoke with Father J.C. I shouldn't say Father J.C., it was Pastor J.C. at this time. It's kind of interesting, but
Right.
we got on the subject of redemptive suffering and my whole contemplation on it, and when I brought it up, he said, you should have kept going to the Mass, or to the Catholic parish. He said, you should keep going. He ended up giving me a book. It's called Theology of Illness by Jean-Claude Larchet. He's an Orthodox psychologist. And this book really explained a lot on the whole concept of redemptive suffering. He started a relationship after that. It was kind of a friendship. Pretty much a friendship immediately. And he invited me over to have lunch with his family, and we discussed different theological issues, and we had talked about the Catholic Church quite often. And I recall one time he asked, why don't you become Catholic? And I said, well, if I would think about joining one of these apostolic churches, it would be the Orthodox Church. Anyways, but he gave me a book on that. I mean, it's just interesting. He would, any question I have, he'd have a book for. And I would read the book, and I started really gravitating toward the Catholic Church at this time, and he ended up leaving the United Methodist Church in the May of 2016, and I was there for his confirmation in September of 2016, him and his family. But we had always communicated over the next 9 years, from 2014 to my entrance in the Catholic Church. Anyways, we would discuss different things over the phone. We'd communicate like once a month. We'd go to coffee every few months and discuss different issues and just keep in touch. And we'd have constant texting back and forth over the years. And anyways, in 2017, I really was contemplating entering the Catholic Church. I spoke with my grandma at this time. She was still alive at this time. She departed in 2023. I spoke with my grandma, and I told her I was thinking about entering the Catholic Church. And she was, like I said in my prior segment, she was a devout Catholic, and she looked at me with loving eyes and said, you should. And anyways, I was dragging my feet. I started praying the rosary, I guess you'd say, in 2016. So I do believe in the power of prayer, praying the rosary. I had an experience with Mary, I felt the loving embrace of her arms. When my first recitation of the rosary.
Wow.
And I was like, why is this something Protestants don't uphold? Because we can get on that. Another book Father JC gave me at this time was Mary for Evangelicals by Tim Perry. It really emphasized Mary as the Ark of the New Covenant. Made a lot of sense to me. And it was a beautiful teaching on Mary. And so I delved into many different issues with the Catholic Church from a Protestant standpoint. And many of them are easily refuted if you become knowledgeable in what the Catholic Church actually teaches, not what Protestants think the Catholic Church teaches. I was dragging my feet upon entering the Catholic Church. And as I said, Father JC and we became friends, and I started attending Mass every once in a while with Father JC in 2020 to 2022, I started attending Mass like every once in a while with Father JC, and I was bringing a lot of questions to Father JC and Father Aaron at this time about me entering in the Catholic Church and my hesitance on entering different things, and it's just God has a way of opening up things. Because many of the issues that I was dealing with, there was Protestant reverts from the Anglican Church. I was thinking about entering the Anglican Church at this time, but there was an Anglican convert that kind of pointed me toward the Catholic Church at this time. It's just interesting. Anyways, I became, I was friends with JC, and I came across an article in the end of January of 2023, an article on Ad Orientem. I don't know if you know what Ad Orientem means or what it's about, but it's basically the priest would face toward the east. And this is an issue I found with the Church's last Mass, because there's parishes that face north, south, and west. So the whole Ad Orientem toward the east is, even our Archbasilica faces toward the west. So, anyways, I'm delving into issues I was dealing with later, but anyways, I asked him about, do all the Catholic parishes face toward the east? Because I recalled that St. Anne's faced towards the east, and St. John the Baptist faced toward the east, and these are the two parishes I was most familiar with. So I asked him, or I texted him, do all Catholic parishes face in a certain direction? And he ended up emailing me an article by Catholic that was put forth by Catholic Culture on facing east. And And this article explains that this was a tradition from the beginning of, it was a known tradition from the beginning of the church, basically. Saint Basil, he mentions that it's a tradition, it's been a tradition from apostolic times that people would pray toward the east. And this is all due to, I shouldn't say all to, but if you read Matthew 24:27, it says, as lightning comes from the east and can be shown unto the, or can be seen unto the west, so shall the Son of Man's return be. And so Jesus will return from the east. And that's the understanding. I mean, if you want to research further on this is something I became aware later on, that graveyards all face toward the east. It's interesting. There's, different interpretations. I know some people say that it's the sun shining, and it's the sun, and sun is shown from the east. Anyways, I'm having a hard time right now with deciphering my words, but anyways, I read later on in the article that, I don't know if you're familiar with Saint Perpetua, but she was martyred in 200 AD, and she wrote in her letter, or her account of her. Anyway, she wrote that she would end, 4 angels would carry her to the east upon her death. And this was something from the beginning of the church, that Christ would come from the east. And it's the article on by Culture kind of states that the east is kind of like the our hope for entering the new Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden was placed in the east, and so we're looking forward to being welcome to the east. I'm having a hard time recounting everything that the article states, but that really doesn't matter, because after I was reading this, I recalled if you recall in my first segment, I mentioned that I died for 5 minutes. But during this 5-minute death, I guess you'd say, I recalled that I entered heaven to the east myself. And I entered it, and the throne of heaven was before me. There's things that are veiled from me. Can't say that I understand everything, but I saw my departed grandpa, who was a Catholic. He came from the Northwest, and I knew I was supposed to follow him. And he led me to the Lord, and I saw the Lord, and he shone like the Transfiguration. And he looked at me and said, "Live life to the fullest." And there's many other things I could state, but I'm not gonna state everything, because there's a lot of things that were, I guess, the term veiled, I guess, would greatly explain it.
Sure.
I heard my dad's prayers at this time, and that kind of refuted the whole teaching on saints can't hear our prayers in heaven, because I heard my dad's prayers in heaven. So that whole teaching is kicked out from that experience that I had. But anyways, getting back to what the Lord spoke to me, live life fullest. If you'd contemplate on this, Jesus lived life to the fullest. And he suffered and died. And this kind of relates to the whole redemptive suffering concept that I've dealt with for at least 20 or 25 years of my life prior to this. So that kind of ties in quite well with living life fullest is redemptive suffering. So it kind of makes suffering a little more bearable, understanding the whole reasoning behind it. I'm not saying that I'm a saint right now. I'm a fallen human being, and I will not attain perfection until I enter heaven. I know this. I don't know why God allowed this grace to me, but this is all I can state. It's all by grace. I entered the Catholic Church and had all these experiences. Why God gave me this grace of being a friend with Father JC, I don't know. I'm grateful for my family as well, for their prayers. And I believe I knew as soon as I recalled all this, or I read the article, and after I read the article, I had a locution from God. He said, "Are you still going to deny me?" And as I was saying, I was dragging my feet on entering the Catholic Church, and I was greatly denying him in the Eucharist. And that's what he meant by, "Are you still going to deny me in the Eucharist?" And I knew I couldn't deny him anymore, so I entered the church, decided that Sunday to make arrangements with the priest, local priest, and had my first reconciliation of February 1st, 2023, and I entered the church that day, and was confirmed that following Pentecost vigil. It's interesting because I was Pentecostal prior to this.
Oh, that's true.
So anyways, how it all worked together is just something else. It's all grace. I believe. I've been entering the Catholic Church where there's been issues with many different things, but God's persevered in his faithfulness to me, and I can't deny him. I entered the Catholic Church. So I believe that's it. Sorry for my scrambled thoughts, but that's what I meant.
No, that's all good. Like, so that's very inspiring, encouraging. I guess, well, a couple of things before I get to I knew why I asked this next question as well, but a couple of things that just through the whole couple of segments here, the whole couple of shows, Scott, is just like your memory is on cue. I mean, a lot of people don't have a memory like you do and what you went through. To have a memory like that is such a blessing and a gift. So, if you never thought of that, I mean, that's really incredible to me. So that's, yeah, have a memory like that, then and like you said, don't worry about your disabilities, because it's the way you put it is what I think a lot of people's, again, I'm not going through what you've gone through, but a lot of people maybe have thought about this or have gone through situations like this, looking at the Catholic Church and considering about entering the Catholic Church. And you're one one of the few, or at least one of the lesser, I guess, to bring it forward. So I just can't say thank you enough for that, because that is totally incredible. I guess my next question is like, how has your journey in the church been, since you joined in 2023? How has it been, as again, not really a person, you have to go too deep personal, but just how has it been, since you came to the faith?
It's kind of like my parents still haven't entered the church, and many and family members, so it's been a struggle with that.
Sure, I bet.
The people are great. I have no complaints about my welcoming into the Catholic Church. My first attendance privately to the Catholic Church, and it was totally different from Protestants, because when Protestants, when you enter the, I guess you would call in a Catholic Church the nave, if once you enter in the Protestants, you call that the sanctuary. Once you enter in that communal body, it's the Protestant church, you're welcomed right away. Catholics, where they're more focused on prayer and adoration of our Lord in the tabernacle than their neighbor.
Sure.
So I guess it's different in that respect. So that kind of threw me off, because I was expecting, once a person would enter, there'd be like a door greeter right as soon as you enter the sanctuary, but we do have door greeters at the church, but it's not in the nave, it's outside, but I do appreciate them. Anyways, I'm just thankful for the Eucharist. That's my biggest thing, because I missed out on all the sacraments that the Catholic Church carries for 25 years. And the sacrament of reconciliation it's not nowhere to be found in the Protestant Church.
No, nowhere.
Many, I should say. I've spoken with many, but it's not exactly that valued in the Protestant churches as the Catholic Church. And there are issues, I understand, with teachings and different things, but the whole sacrament of reconciliation is a blessing to me. Also, the sacrament of the Eucharist, that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's nothing to be taken for granted, that's for sure. I mean, I think a lot of Catholics do, even devout, probably still take sacraments for granted a little bit. And it's just like, it's really just a gift of what the church offers.
It's a
And then,
blessing.
yeah,
Once a person goes to reconciliation, they have a weight lifted off them.
you do.
And this is something. It's like you can literally feel the weight being lifted off from you. And it's a blessing. anyways, I attended Father JC's his ordination into the diaconate and also his ordination in the priesthood. That was a blessing to see your friend be.
I bet.
Anyways, there are so many things I felt I missed out on for 25 years that were there. I don't see how a person could not want it, but anyways, I have my brothers here, but
Okay.
anyways, so
Okay. Well, I mean, again, just like you said, all the experiences you went through, you seeing the Lord, you had that embrace with Mary, first time you prayed the rosary. Um, so I gotta ask you too, because I'll do this. I'll get you a rosary for being on the show. So, um, um, how many rosaries do you have in your mind? Because I know a lot of people have multiple rosaries. They got rosaries in your pocket, you got rosaries in your car. Um, estimate. I mean, just because like you said, rosary has such an impact on your life, like you said too.
it's kind of interesting. Father JC, before he was entered into the diaconate, he made me a rosary with large beads due to my
Oh, sure.
fingers and my
Yep.
dexterity of my fingers. But anyways, I have a Seven Sorrows rosary. I have probably 5 different rosaries, but I don't know if
Gotcha.
that's you're asking. But
Gotcha. Well, you have another one after I get you one. So I know I'm a great guy. So we'll get you another rosary for coming on the show. So it's my gift to you. So don't worry about that. And then also just I think I want when you're talking again, you made a point like you said with your grandma. My condolences. I just lost my grandma recently here too, so I know what it's like to lose a grandparent in the past year or two. Um, but how she was like, she looked at you with loving eyes. Like she wasn't forceful. Like, yes, Scott, like about time. Yeah, you should come.
yeah,
It's like no, it was just that Catholic, devout Catholic, loving, you know, um, Holy Spirit, Holy Spirit, and more loving embrace. Like, yes, you should. I think that's what we need more of, if you agree.
yeah.
So, but yeah. Um, Otherwise, I can't not thank you enough. Again, this was made possible by Father JC. He actually came up to me one day and he was talking a lot about you. And he's like, you should have him on the show. So, Father JC, I know you're listening. Thank you for introducing me to Scott because this has been a really blast. Also, Scott, I wouldn't mind getting you back on in the future. Um, what are some of the things that you really like to maybe talk about in the Catholic faith? Is there a specific topic or a thing?
Well, ministering to the homeless and poverty and people who are struggling with loneliness. That's probably the homebound individuals.
Sure.
I believe many of in the Catholic Church have missed out so much. Why do they miss out? Why do we continue to allow these people to live in loneliness? I don't understand why. Poverty and the loneliness, that's probably the worst.
Sure.
Probably the thing that I did not to discuss the most.
Okay. And that brings back to what the Lord said to you. I mean, live life to the fullest, and that's one of the things that's helping out those in need. So we'll get you back on. We'll talk about that. And like I said, Scott, your testimony has been one of the best I have ever heard. Just like I said, the storyline, the personal. I mean, again, I think a lot of people can relate to it, and that's why I think this is so good. Again, a lot of people, everyone deals with suffering, right? I'm not a good suffering endure. I have to get better at that. But something that you would like to maybe share to someone out there who's maybe going through a similar situation that you went through, if they're considering joining the church. Just kind of share, I guess, anything else that's on your heart right now.
Don't let your suffering be in vain. You offer it up. I mean, it doesn't, it's a powerful sacrifice that you're doing. Anyways.
Good. I like it. All right. So again, we'll get you that rosary, Scott. I really appreciate you coming on, and again, not once but twice. And like I said, we'll hopefully meet in person very soon because we're not far off. In the same ACC pretty much. So we gotta meet in person, and we'll get you that rosary. So thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, William.
Scott Malone, everyone, check him. Again, share this far and wide because I think, again, this is one of my favorite testimony stories, and I'm sure, but feedback that I got in episode 1, I think everyone really enjoyed it as well, because I mean, Scott's a living testament, right? I mean, staying grace, close to the Lord, and living life to the fullest. So that's what we should do too, folks. So God bless you. God love you and your family. Until we meet again, stay in the grace, go to the sacraments, start taking from gratitude, keep up that prayer life, and live life to the fullest.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Catholic Table Talk podcast, where everything Catholic is on the table. Don't forget to subscribe to Catholic Table Talk on your favorite podcast platform to get new episodes delivered directly to you every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern.